Hi there, and welcome to Beyond the Business Suit. I am thrilled and honored to have Shellye Archambeau with us today. Shellye, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
I'm excited to not only have this conversation with you, but also to introduce some of the listeners who don't know your magic to your magic. And I know that we're going to have a great conversation get into a lot of fantastic things. So I'm excited to jump in.
Sounds
And
good.
great. One of the starting points could be, can you give us some of your background, where you're from? Before we get into your career, would love to learn more about Shellye and your path.
Absolutely. So I am one of four. I'm the eldest. My
Mm.
parents were crazy in that they really, they had four children in less than 5 years. So
Oh
my
my
brother,
gosh.
who's the baby, is less than 5 years younger than I am.
Bless them. Bless
Less than.
them.
Exactly. So that boom, 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 crazy.
Wow.
But as a result, we grew up as a pretty close family. And we moved around quite a bit as my father pursued his career goals, so that by the time I was in high school, I'd already lived in 7 different states. So we were
Wow.
nomadic. And I would say, what else would I tell you about growing up? Growing up was all around family because we moved so much, right? Family was obviously very tight, very important. And we were big on playing games, competing. Oh my goodness. One thing you always get when you have kids so close together is we're definitely competitive with each other. So, games in our household were cutthroat.
Oh,
Uh,
I can imagine.
yeah, yeah. And, but at the same time, my parents did a good job of grounding us wherever we went. So we got involved, we made friends, we didn't act like it was short term. And I think that's helped us in becoming both resilient and feeling settled despite our nomadic ways.
Oh, that's great. So you said that you moved around so much because of your father's job?
Correct.
Great. So where are you originally from?
So I was born in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
but literally from there, before I was even a year old, we moved to Boston, then Lexington, where my two sisters were born, then Philadelphia, where my brother was born, and then we went to California, then we did Connecticut, then we did, where did we go after that? New Jersey. I mean, it was just, oh yeah,
Wow.
we were on the move.
Wow.
We
And
were on the move.
yes, and I can relate to that. My mom she worked in corporate, and every 2 to 3 years, she was promoted, relocated. So I think I'm up to maybe 9 states, but not 7 during childhood. So I can't even imagine, especially with 4 children. Oh my gosh.
Exactly,
So what,
exactly.
and what do you think were some of the things that you learned moving
Oh my
around so
goodness.
much?
So, one was just resilience. You learned that you could make it anywhere, that
Mm,
people were literally just people. Yes, you have great people and you have bad people and you have all that, but people are just people. And I think the other thing that we learned as part of that was just the importance of being rooted and getting involved.
mm,
I came across others who also moved around, but a lot of people didn't actually engage because they felt wherever they were was temporary. So I think it's important to make home wherever the pillow is
mm,
and really get grounded. So that was important. Also, the village, having people around you, whether it's physical or virtual, that support you all the way through is good. And we always treated Washington, D.C. as kind of our home base. That's where our grandparents were. So
mm.
having that touchstone, I think, was important too.
That's great. Now, something that I heard you say on another podcast is that when you were in high school, that was the first time that you said, I am going to be a CEO. And I don't know any any high school student who who knows that they're going to be a CEO or has made that designation. Maybe an entrepreneur, CEO by way of being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but I mean, what do you think drove you to even have that vision for yourself back then?
Well, it's interesting because of how I grew up, moving around all the time. And I was very young in the 60s, which was a very tumultuous time.
Mhm.
So it was pretty clear to me that the odds to get what I want weren't really in my favor, and that I was going to have to be much more intentional and figure out how to improve my odds if I really wanted to get what I wanted in life. So with that as a backdrop, I met with my guidance counselor, and I'll be candid, Kylie, I think I was very fortunate that it was a female.
Mm.
But she asked me what I wanted to do. And this is like, you're in your sophomore, junior year in high school. And I said, honestly, I'm not sure. And she said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, I love running clubs. I get involved in organizations, American Field Service, French Club, even Girl Scouts, whatever it was. And ultimately, I'd end up leading it or in a leadership role. And she said, to her credit, well, running an organization like that, leading one, is just like running a business. And I
Wow.
said, oh, great. This is what I'd love to do. So this is what I'm going to go do. So I'll just go be CEO.
I'll just go be CEO. So,
I,
and
I
you
felt
did.
audacious. I really didn't realize
And
how
you,
audacious that
oh
was
my
at the
gosh, I
time.
love it. I would have loved to meet this sophomore or junior Shellye. I mean, so and you did that. And so take us from that light bulb moment
Hmm.
to you actually doing that. What were
Okay.
some of the path you took during your career journey,
Well,
or that you
certainly.
have taken, because it's
Yes.
not over, it's not
Yes.
over.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So the first is I looked around, right? I'm a big believer in doing my research. So I looked around and there weren't CEOs that looked like me,
Right.
right? Not ones that I could find. And I thought, oh Lord, here we go. The odds are not in the favors. So how do I improve the odds? And so here what I did was I said, all right, I need credential. So let me go to the best business school I possibly can go to. And doing the research, Wharton has an undergraduate program. And I thought, perfect, I'll do Wharton. And then I don't even have to go to grad school because I came from modest means. So this would give me the opportunity to get my business degree, not have to go to grad school, get the credential, right? And go off. So I applied, and literally was the only school I applied to. I ended my essay with, please take me. I don't want to go anywhere else. Here's what I want to do with my life. And this is the degree that I want. So fortunately, I was a good student, so they took me.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And then after that, again, I'm also a believer in listening to people. There's a lot of good advice if you just keep your ears open. And one of the things I heard along the way was if you join an industry that's growing, then companies in that industry are growing. And growing companies never have enough resources. So the odds to advance, if you're good, tend to be better. I said, okay. So I looked around. Technology, that was the growing industry. I said, great. IBM was kind of the apple of the time. Wonderful. I'm going to go be CEO of IBM.
Wow. I love it. Again, the audacity and the boldness. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Wow.
So I started working.
And then you went to IBM.
I did, of course, because that was the goal. So, I started working for IBM actually when I was in college. Um, and as an intern, I ended up working literally 24 hours a week and working my
Wow.
classes around work.
Mm.
And then ultimately did join IBM. And, it was interesting because I got to IBM and I started out in sales, which my Wharton classmates thought was ridiculous. I mean, they were all going off to be investment bankers and Wall Street and P&G product managers, and I'm going to go to be a sales rep? What
Hmm.
in the world? Except I'd done my homework. And every single CEO at IBM up to that point had started out in sales.
Wow.
So I said, all right, that's obviously the path. So let me follow the current, start out in sales, and go be CEO.
I want to pause for a moment because you were doing research before this was pre-internet.
Oh yeah, this was hard stuff. This is
This
like
is
literally,
what, like in the library?
yep, in the library, looking and
Wow.
reading at articles. No, thank you for making that point. But yes, no, this was when research was actually hard and you had
Wow.
to really dedicate yourself to go find and read articles. So yeah, I went and looked up who were all the CEOs, what were their careers, absolutely. Because
Wow.
as I said, I didn't think the odds were in my favor. And so the way to improve my odds was to have more knowledge an understanding of what I was getting into was
Mhm.
one of the tools I've used my entire life in terms of improving my overall odds. So I'm a big believer that homework does not stop at school. You
Yes.
need to do homework all the time, because the idea of homework is just to help you build your skills, build your knowledge so that you can perform better, right? Whether it's on a
Mhm.
test or in your career. So yeah, homework's important to me.
Yes. So you did your homework. You found out that all the CEOs had they started in sales or had a
Yep.
sales background. So you went, even though your classmates were saying, you're crazy, what are you doing?
Right, right.
You had done the homework, you had done the research.
Mm-hmm.
And how was sales as a training ground?
You know what? To this day, I tell people I think the best first job for anyone is in sales.
Wow.
And I don't care what you want to do. And the reason is you get told no all the time. So you learn how to ask for what you want. You learn that when you hear a no, it's not the end of the world.
Mhm.
You learn what no means. And just to put a little clarity around that, when somebody tells you no, it doesn't mean no forever. A
Mm.
no typically just means not now. It might mean that the timing's not right. It might mean that the circumstances aren't correct. The deal terms aren't what they need to be. The, whatever. But there's a no for a reason. So actually getting a no is a really good thing, because when people tell you no, you can then ask why not. And it's in the why not that you learn.
Wow.
It's worse just to be strung along and never be told no.
Mhm.
So in sales, you learn that. And throughout your career, I have to tell you, one of the tools that can help you in your career is asking for what you want and what you need. So learning how to do that early is helpful.
Wow. That's a great advice. And I wish it's one of those things, I wish I had that early in my career, because now as an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
it's learning those sales skills. If I would have known that in my 20s, if I would
Yeah,
have sharpened that back then yes, it would be a lot easier. So you went into sales,
went into
and,
sales.
and what were some of the experiences you had in your time at IBM?
Oh my goodness. A number. So first, here you are, you're excited, you join the company, and then you look around and realize there's like several 100,000 people in this company, and they probably
Wow.
all want to be CEO. So how is this going to work? How am I going to differentiate myself? And that comes back to kind of the strategy. So I looked at it and said, all right, if everybody wants to be CEO, then what's going to make me stand out? So obviously I have to perform, right? That's hands down. But two, I looked around over time to figure out where could I differentiate myself. And marketing was something that IBM wasn't particularly good at. We didn't even have a chief marketing officer. They called salespeople marketing reps, just to give you an idea.
Interesting.
Um,
Wow.
right. So I said, all right, I'm going to kind of major at IBM in marketing. So yes, I'm in sales, but as I grow my career, IBM, like many companies, they try to round you out. So you do kind of a line job, staff job, line job, staff job. And every time it was time for a staff job, I'd look for jobs that were marketing oriented so that I could build this skill set. And then the good news is Lou Gerstner got hired to be CEO, looked around and said, we're the marketing people. Hired his first chief marketing officer who did the same thing. We're the marketing people. Well, guess what? I'm a
Wow.
marketing person. So when Abby Comstan joined, I became part of her pulled together, marketing team. And sure enough, my very first executive role at IBM was a marketing job. So that worked for me in terms of differentiating myself around that. And, it was what I found in working in corporate America was, yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you have to hit your numbers. You have to make an impact. But that's not enough. The other thing you have to do is to make sure that people know that it's happening. And not in a way where you're walking around saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, right? Look how
Mhm.
great I am. That doesn't work either. Um, so you have to find ways to stand out, whether that is volunteering for cross-functional organizations so people can see you beyond what it is that you're doing, becoming a leader, and by leader, I don't mean manager.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference between a leader and a manager. A manager becomes a manager by title. You are now a manager. You have people responsible, people who report to you. You're a leader because your people make you a leader.
Mm.
They decide to follow you. And it doesn't even have to be people who work for you. So you can become a leader long before you become a manager.
That's a
And
great
I
distinction.
encourage people to become leaders because leaders others gravitate towards. So anyway, that was a key part, was really becoming that leader and not waiting for title. What else would I offer in terms of experiences? The other is, I talked about starting out in sales, following the current. Every organization has a current. Current meaning kind of the path, right? That the typical person or executive or whatever follows. So figure out what that current is. And if you can get on the current, it's just like, rowing a boat. You can row with the current and go a whole lot farther, or you can row against the current. You're rowing just as hard, but where you go is very different. So figure out where that current is and get on the current and then work super hard. What else? There's just
I'm sure.
so many. Exactly. There's so many different things, but let me pass it back to you.
Yeah, well, I'm curious at what point in time, because you didn't stay there forever. You didn't, although the goal was to become CEO.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in time did you decide, okay, now is the time to move on?
Yeah. So yes, I was pushing hard. And now I'm at IBM for, gosh, I want to say almost 14 years. And I've done well. I'm now over in Asia Pacific, living in Japan, moved my whole family to Japan.
Wow.
I was the first African-American woman sent on an executive assignment overseas, which is
Wow.
kind of crazy because that was the late 90s.
Yes.
But a couple things were happening. One, I didn't feel IBM was paying me what I was worth in the marketplace. Not that I wasn't getting raises and getting promoted, I was, but like many companies, they have bands. And so what happened is I would be earning at the bottom of the band because I'm new into the role, but I'd get performance ratings that put me in the top 10% of performance. So it meant, I'm doing better than 90% and I'm getting paid less than 90%. Why does this work?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I got promoted, I did the right same thing, kind of bottom of the band, right? Kind of working through. And then I just looked around and said, now what are the odds? At this point, I was working for John Joyce, who worked for Lou Gerstner. So there wasn't anyone who looked like me higher than me in the company. And thought, is this really going to happen? Maybe not. And they're not paying me. And we've made a lot of trade-offs as a family. I've moved them all over the place. I really owe them. Not that I'm a mercenary. I'm not. My objective in life was not to become the richest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
My objective was to become a CEO. So but I still should be paid fairly for what I'm doing. So I said, you know what? I've now done big. Let me look around and see if I can take the skills that I've gotten and learned and actually go build something and really shape it. So I did the research. And the research said that many executives that leave big companies and go immediately to run smaller ones actually stumble a time or two because it's so different. As a woman of color, I don't think I have as many strikes at bat. So I have to improve my odds. So I said, let me go take a seat at the table job or two and then go after the CEO job. So that's what I did. I ultimately left IBM to become president of Blockbuster.com. Now, this is the late 90s. This is when Blockbusters were really hot.
Wow.
Their first,
Yes.
right? First launching their Blockbuster.com website, did the first big deal with AOL, right? Got this thing going and met Reed Hastings along the way, who was then, they were fledgling, four guys kind of building a company, had technology, but didn't have any of the movie relationships, credentials, et cetera. He and I met several times. And then he came out to Blockbuster and pitched, let's take Blockbuster.com, the brand, Netflix, the technology, spit it out and go conquer the world.
Wow.
Wow. Well, obviously that didn't happen.
That did not happen. How did that not happen?
Hindsight is always wonderful, right?
Wow.
Blockbuster was a super profitable company, generating lots of cash, doing really well. And the CEO said, hey, if that ever turns into anything, we'll just buy it. And at that point, I was like, came home and told my husband, you know what? I think it's going to be time to move on once I hit my, once I hit my milestone here. So
Because
I,
you could see it. You could see
yeah,
the opportunity.
absolutely. So I said, let's go to Silicon Valley next. And sure enough,
Wow.
I got Chief Marketing Officer, EVP roles at two public companies in Silicon Valley, newly public, and then got my CEO opportunity, become CEO of what was then Zaplet, now MetricStream, which is a large global governance, risk, and compliance software company, serving some of the largest companies in the world. And that's the company that I built.
Wow. And how long were you there?
I was at MetricStream for, goodness, about 15 years. So a long time.
Wow.
That was a company that Reed Hastings likes to, not Reed Hastings, Reed Hoffman
Hmm.
once coined that, Zaplet MetricStream, that's the turnaround, that I've turned a company around that almost nobody's never heard of
Yes.
because it was in crazy, crazy trouble. Definitely not doing well. Most of the investors had written it off. And we took that company and saved it from the ashes, survived a couple more life-threatening situations, and then built it into a market leader. So it's pretty exciting.
That is exceptional. So, what were some of the, if you could think about three of the key learnings, because that's something that most people cannot do,
Mm-hmm.
taking a failing organization and turning it into an industry leader. I mean, who does that, right? And so I would love to hear some of the learnings that those of us who are the people who are listening who may be leading organizations or leading departments or are in an organization that are that are flailing, right? How can they what are some of the learnings that they can learn from your experience?
Oh gosh, so several. So one is, it's the value proposition. You have to make sure, or find, if it's not the case, the value that your company is providing that solves a problem that is a pressing problem with companies.
Mm,
I like to say, find the stone in the shoe, because people will do almost anything to get the stone out of the shoe after they've walked a mile,
wow.
right? It's painful.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're doing something that's just a nice to have, hey, I can give you a prettier pair of shoes, for less money. I can do this. Well, you know what? My shoes are working for me. I can keep walking. So find the problem that you can solve that is a must solve problem. So that's one. Two, it's all about the team. It is all about the team. You have to build a great, resilient team to go after the problem that you've now identified.
Mm.
And three, it comes down to money. There's a lot of good ideas out there. There's a lot of problems that can be solved, a lot of super software. I mean, all those things, but cash is king. And many companies never get the real chance because they run out of money. So you have to make sure that you've got money, that you are managing it so, so, so tightly, because it is absolutely precious. The value, prop, the team, and you've got to manage that money.
And I would imagine, especially with the team, going through challenges like that can be really disheartening. It can be, people can feel defeated and unmotivated. What are some of the ways that you were able to lead that organization and those teams into being, making that turnaround and getting behind you to have the fortitude to even make that happen?
Yeah, you have to be able to create the vision, and a
Mm,
shared vision that the team sees, believes in. And then you have to keep tying what they do every day to that vision. The analogy I like to use is the one about the brick builder. And I don't know if you know the story, but there's a man walking in kind of a really broad area, and he sees all this construction going on. And he walks past a man who is sitting there basically stacking bricks, right? He's got a brick, put it on the wall, put down the cement, put the next brick. He's sweating and he's hot and he doesn't seem happy. And the guy says, "What are you doing?" Well, he says, "Well, what do you think I'm doing?" I'm building a wall. I'm building bricks and putting on a wall, right? Blah, blah, blah. Obvious. Okay. He keeps walking, comes across another guy who's doing the exact same thing, except he's kind of whistling while he's working, right? He's up there and the guy says, hey, what are you doing? He says, I'm building the foundation of a cathedral.
Mm.
You have to be able to paint the vision and then tie what everybody in the company is doing to that vision, and then help them see the progress that you're making towards the vision and the validation, right, as it comes. Because it's hard work. It is really hard work. And especially when you're building a company, many near-death experiences. So the ability to make it through is important. As a matter of fact, we had several, and after probably one of the hardest, one of my members of my exec team said, he coined the term, never say die. And we actually made it part of our company culture values.
Wow.
Our core value, never say die, which meant that we were going to figure out how to make it happen, whatever it was.
Wow.
Those are all important things.
That's great. That's great. I would imagine too that being a Black woman in Silicon Valley
Mm-hmm.
may have its own challenges or it could feel isolating, right? I would imagine there are not many Shelleys. There were not many during that 14 years there. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah. Well, the good news is there's more now, which is great.
Yes.
Still not enough, but there's definitely more now. When you say, how was the experience? You know, and I'm sure everyone on this, listening to this podcast has been through and had their own, right, kinds of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will tell you is ultimately, when I would walk into a room, especially for the first time, when you get named for a job, especially for the first time, when you're trying to raise money, especially for the first time, all those things, I knew that people were underestimating me. The key is you can turn that into an advantage because they have low expectations and a low bar. You can exceed those and therefore make it very powerful. So I tried to turn it around instead of taking it as, oh my gosh, and where is the chip on my shoulder? I really took it as just wait.
I love that.
So
It's like you
exactly.
have no idea. Okay. All right. I'm going to prove you. I'm going to prove you
Exactly.
wrong.
So yeah, so I think that's a key part. The other thing is I'm also a big believer in the power of a village. And even when I started my CEO job and looked around and went, oh my goodness, for the first time, you have no peers. Everybody's either reporting to you or you're reporting to them. And you can't have special relationships with people that report to you because that doesn't work. And I said, I need peers. I need people I can talk to. So I actually just created my own group. I found others that were also building companies, and we became each other's peers, support system, cheerleaders, you know, the whole bit. And I encourage people all the time, you know, create your group, your posse, your team, because it's hard. And you don't have to be a CEO for it to be hard.
Right.
You know, life is hard. And if you're ambitious and you're striving to achieve different things and you're breaking some barriers and it's hard. And it's helpful to have people around you that you can let your hair down with and that can remind you, right, how you're doing. I tell people all the time, find cheerleaders. Find people who, when you are feeling your worst because the world is telling you that you're failing, and trust me, whether it's media or it's in business, we get reminded often all the ways in which we are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no wonder that we feel, right, overwhelmed at times. Well, it's important to have someone in your corner that's reminding you, Kylie, you are awesome, right? You have skills, you have smarts, right? You have drive, you are great. You want somebody who's actually telling you that to counteract all the other crap that's coming at you, because there's a lot of it. And it's hard to consistently be strong. So I didn't do this by myself. I had a fabulous husband who was a wonderful partner and cheerleader. You know, lots of friends. I told you about this little network we put together. I mean, I created lots of support systems for me because I'm good. I'm not that good. We all need help. We all need help.
Yes. I was going to say you're great, but you're greater when you're not doing it all yourself, right? When you have that encouragement, that support system is so important.
Yep.
And you made the tough decision to leave MetricStream.
I did.
So talk a little bit about that and the why behind that and how that experience was, especially after pouring so much into that organization.
Sure. So first, just a bit of background, because as you probably heard a little thread going through, I'm a big planner. I set goals, I set objectives, and I put the plans in place to figure out how to go make it happen. So shortly after becoming CEO, I already started planning for what my phase two would be. I didn't know when I was going to stop wanting to be CEO, but when I did, I wanted it to be easy. And so I thought my phase two would be flexibility, serving on corporate boards, advising companies, coaching some CEOs, perhaps writing, speaking, having the opportunity to give back and share. So that's really what I wanted to do for phase two. So I took some steps to make that easier when I would need to pull that little ripcord, whenever that was, by getting on my first corporate board so that I'd have experience when it was time to say, okay, now I'm interested in really doing this on a more aggressive basis, right, et cetera. But I didn't know when that would be. Well, that time came almost 2 years ago. My husband, unfortunately, was diagnosed with a terminal cancer about a little over 10 years ago. And at that point, we all take a big, deep breath and a swallow, and that's never the news that you want to hear. But after us getting our heads around it, I said to him and I said to our kids, I figured out what our blessing is. Because I believe that everything that happens, no matter how horrible it seems at the time, there is some underlying blessing. You just have to look hard sometimes to figure it out. And for this one, I told our kids, I said, we are going to live a better life as a result of your dad's diagnosis. Because we know right now, up front and close, that life is finite. And even though intellectually we all know that our time on earth is limited, we don't act that way.
Right.
We act like life is going to go on forever. So we put things off. Oh, one day, right? One day we'll do this. I said, we're not going to put anything off. We want to do something, we're going to do it. We want to celebrate, we're going to celebrate. We're going to do it because we don't know how long we have dad. So we are going to live a better life now. And I will tell you, Kylie, we did. Scotty and I, we had the conversation and we agreed we were going to live life first. And we were going to fight cancer second. So that meant that I didn't step out of my job at that point, because if I did, then it was all about cancer. All right. So we put in the support systems, we did things we needed to do, but we continued to live, we continued to travel, continued to do everything. But it would have been about 3 years ago now, he entered his final stage of his cancer. And at that point, had conversations with the board, agreed it's time to make a change. And went through a process, a transition, hiring, the whole bit. And so about, what would have been 9 months later, I stepped out from being CEO and moved officially into my phase two. And did what I said I was going to do. Started serving on boards because they give me more flexibility. I can control the calendar a little bit. You can plan around the meetings. Started doing some speaking, advising companies, but had a ton of flexible time to be able to travel, to celebrate, spend time with family, right? All those things that we wanted to do, because the goal then was for there to be no regrets when he would ultimately pass, which unfortunately he did earlier this year.
Yes. Oh, and I see, is that his picture behind you now?
Oh, as a matter of fact, it is. I'm sitting in the office. Yeah, that is his picture.
Yes.
That is his picture. He was an amazing man.
And I had the pleasure of meeting him through ITSMF.
Oh, that's right.
And remember his just kind and fun spirit.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes. Oh, well, I am, as I told you before our interview, I'm sorry to hear that. And I know the holidays after a loved one has passed it can be difficult. And what a blessing. What a blessing that you were able to see what was happening, that you had
Mhm.
the sometimes we lose a spouse and it's
Absolutely. Sudden.
abrupt,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
to not only know that it was coming and be able to mentally prepare for that, but also to seize that as, you know what, this is a blessing. And
Mhm.
let's live every moment. That what an excellent example to your family too.
Mhm.
So that's beautiful. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. So you're in your phase two.
I am. I
And
am.
you are on 4 boards. And these are not just, board here, board there. I mean, Nordstrom,
Right.
Verizon,
Mhm.
Roper Technologies,
Mhm.
Opta.
Mhm.
I mean, these are amazing organizations. And I saw on Instagram recently you were at the opening of the new New York or the new Manhattan
Oh, yes.
Nordstrom.
Nordstrom.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You have to check it out. They
Oh, I
did
can't
such a
wait.
phenomenal job. Such a phenomenal job. It's an outstanding store.
Oh, I can't wait to check it out. And in 2020, your new book is coming out. So tell us a
Yes.
little bit about your book.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited about it. The title of the book is Unapologetically Ambitious.
Mm,
And it's a book about how to get what you want out of life. And when I say life, I mean life. So that's personal, it's also professional. And I talk about how to be intentional, how to put together plans, actually live those plans. And I do it not through preaching, but through telling stories. I share stories of my own career background, what worked, what didn't, hard times, good times, etc., with the idea that I can provide some tips, some advice, some perspective to help others be able to get what they want out of life. Because so many times we learn lessons much later in our careers, in our lives. We think, gosh, if I just known that earlier,
yes.
right? It might have helped or changed the trajectory. So I wrote it down, hoping that I could help those in their 20s and 30s, but also those that are in their 40s and 50s and saying, you know what, I'm not really where I thought I would be right now. And are there ways for me to make a change?
Mm,
And I'm hopeful that people will find some value out of it. Because, Kylie, I've spent my whole career trying to be accessible and approachable, trying to share what I've learned. And I found that it got to the point where even though I try, I'm pretty good. I respond to just about every Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever comes through, but I can't be everywhere. So I
right.
thought, let me write it down and try to share it. So I hope people will pick it up and take a look, because I've been fortunate in that I have achieved the goals that I've set for myself. But it's also hasn't been easy. It's
Hmm.
all about trade-offs and decisions and finding, the right partners, the right teams, all those things. So anyway, so yes, I'm excited. It comes out in
Oh,
October.
oh,
It'll be
great.
probably pre-order in like the May, June time frame. And as I told you earlier, I'm going to be putting together a launch team so folks who can
Great.
work with me. So if you're interested, anyone listening to the podcast, if you're interested in becoming part of the Shellye Archambeau launch team for Unapologetically Ambitious, drop me a note on LinkedIn. Um,
Yes.
happy to rope you in to the mission. This is going to be exciting.
Awesome. Oh, so exciting. And I cannot wait for it to release. I can't wait to be on the launch team
Great.
to help get the word out. And we'll have to have you back on when it does release so we can talk about it even further. So
I
I
would
look
love
forward
that.
to that.
All right. That sounds good.
Wonderful. Great. Well, we are at the time or the point of the episode that it's called the final 5. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to pick 5 numbers between the numbers of 1 and 22.
Okay. I'm going to pick 3,
Mm-hmm.
7, 14, 19, 31.
Oh, 22 is the
Oh, 22. Okay,
22.
22.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. And then I need what? 2 more?
You need just one more.
Just one more?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll pick 17, 16.
16. Okay. I'll start with number 3, which is what was your first job?
My first paid job,
Yes.
not counting babysitting, was cleaning stalls in a horse barn.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Where
Yeah,
was
sure
this?
was. This was in New Jersey. I was in the 8th grade and I wanted to take horseback riding lessons. And in our family, we had to pay for half of anything that we chose to do. So
Hmm.
what my mom used to have a notebook which had basically jobs and prices for jobs. So until we could get jobs outside of home, she had a book where there were always chores that could be done to earn money.
Wow.
But now I was old enough to get a job, so I got a job cleaning stalls because it made more money than mom's book chores made. And that's how I paid for half of my horseback riding lessons.
Wow. And where in New Jersey was this?
A place called Montville, New Jersey, northern
Hmm.
Jersey.
Ah, look at that.
Yeah.
So interesting. So the next question is, what is one book that has impacted your life?
Oh my goodness. There have been so many, but what would I say currently? You know what book I'll tell you, and it's the book, but it's also the story behind the book, and that's Trillion Dollar Coach. So Trillion
Hmm.
Dollar Coach is a new book that's out, and it's about Bill Campbell. And Bill
Ah.
Campbell was a mentor and sponsor of mine. And
Hmm.
so I say that book because it's the book, but it's the man in terms of behind it who had a really big impact on my life and my career.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to put that one on my list. The next question is, what are three of your favorite things, people not included?
3 of my favorite things. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness. So I love performing arts. Um,
Mm.
I like to entertain and I enjoy spending time with family and especially my grandkids, believe it or not.
Oh, wonderful. Great. The next question is, what are some of the things that you do that when you do them, you feel like you're most yourself?
Oh goodness. Um, Planning things. I just plan. So whether they're trips or it's events or it's my gourmet dinner clubs or outings, I'm in my element when it's all right. Here's what we want to do or get done. How do we plan it to make it all smooth and easy when we actually go do it? But I'm in my element when I'm planning something.
I love people like you, Shelley. I am not, that is not my ministry, but I love to surround myself with people who that is. So I love that. And then the final question is, what is one experience that you haven't shared with us yet that has truly shaped who you are?
Hmm. Um, when I was at IBM, we IBM decided that their high potentials, especially their women and people of color, et cetera, but high potential folks should have mentors. And so they decided that let the people who choose who they wanted their mentors to be. So I was asked, who do I want my mentor to be? And I picked a gentleman by the name of Roland Harris, who was several years above me. I respected him. I thought, he's ambitious and going places. And so I picked him. Well, 2 or 3 days later, he calls me up, Shelley. And I said, yes, Roland. And he goes, you put my name down to be your mentor. And he doesn't sound happy about it. And I said, well, yes, I thought you liked me. And he said, Shelley, you've got me. Go find somebody else.
Mm.
And that changed my whole perspective of mentors. I was like, oh, I can have more than one. So
Wow.
I can have as many, right, as I need. So I just put that in steroids. And I literally, as I went forward, I had a bunch of mentors in my
Mm.
in my career and absolutely helped me.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a great year. I mean, you're dropping so many gems, Shelley, up until the end. Well, I do have one bonus question, and that is what or how can people connect with you online, on social media? How can they
Absolutely.
connect?
So Shellye Archambeau, I'm the only one spelled the way I spell it, Shelley with a Y-E at the end. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Shell, Shel, Archambeau on Instagram. which is the other place you can find me. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm more active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So I would give you those two first.
Wonderful. And I will have links to your social media accounts in the notes for this episode.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shellye, for being so generous with your time, for sharing so much of your story and your wisdom with us. And best of luck to you as you're going into this pivotal 2020
Yes,
year.
yes, gonna be an exciting year for sure. Well, thank you so much, Kylie. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Oh,